Hi, and welcome to S.T.A.R Productions, spiritually trained and renewed productions, where it's not enough to be talented, you have to be spiritually trained and renewed. Today, in the S.T.A.R Production studio, I have with me, you're not gonna believe how blessed this woman is. She is several books, several audio books, voiceover artist. She's an actress spectacular. She's a producer. She's a casting director. She is. Oh, stay tuned. I'm gonna tell you more. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. Max here at S.T.A.R Productions. I have with me the one and only Charity Spencer.
Hello.
We are so excited to have you here at the S.T.A.R Production Studio. I've been tracking her for months, I must say, and finally, out of her busy schedule, she gave me a little small window for me to talk a little bit about what she's been doing recently. If you would mind telling our audience and telling me, who's Charity?
Who is Charity? That's such an intimidating question, but I love it. I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, for the most part. We moved there when I was 10, so I count my growing up in this little Meadville, Pennsylvania. Left for college, felt the Lord calling me to move down to Nashville after that, so I graduated college 2003, came down here after that, and God has just led me in this like step-by-step process to get me to where I am today and to be doing the work that He wants me to do.
Wow.
It's been a pretty long but exciting journey.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Indeed. You know, I love your name. Love your name, Charity. Could you tell us how you got that name? And for those who don't know what it means, could you tell us what it means?
Charity means love. There is a Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 13:13, that says, faith, hope, and charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. In the King James Version. I had a youth pastor that did not believe me that's where my name came from. He kept saying it's not in the Bible. I say, pull out the King James and you will see that it is. And he had to come back and apologize to me. I was like, dude, I know where my name came from. But I am the oldest of 5 kids. And my mother has always loved the name Heidi, but my dad always had to have a Charity. And apparently there was a big back and forth between the two of them when number one, which was a girl, came along. So my dad won out. I got the name Charity, and my sister came along 4 years later, and she's named Heidi Faith. And if there was a third girl, the rest were all boys, but if there was a third girl, her middle name would have been Hope. But my mother also threatened my life if I ever used that verse and lorded it over my sister's head. Well, the Bible says I'm greater than Faith. So I don't know what to tell you.
Wow. And actually, Faith is my daughter's middle name.
Yes,
Faith.
I love that.
Wow. Well, that's
Strong
a great
name.
name. Your
Thank
parents
you.
have done a great job. So
Thank you.
Unless a third daughter happens to come on the way,
My mother would.
they're stuck with Charity and Faith.
Charity and Faith, yeah.
All right. Charity, we met some 4 or 5 years maybe ago.
Yeah.
And I did not discover your many talents until I've heard you sing. And when I did, I thought that was your primary love.
Love that.
And then I come to discover you have many loves. If you would please tell us, since I kind of knew you through singing, or even way before that during casting,
Yeah.
but when I knew about you and your talents was when I first heard you sing.
In my moments of fear, through every pain, every tear, there's a God who's been faithful to me.
You sang with the choir, that was great, but when I heard you do your first solo, I'm like, whoa, she can sing! And where did singing come from? Who in the family can sing? Where'd you get that?
I'm the only singer in my family, but I have been finding out that there are some generations past that have been musical.
It skipped a few generations.
Yes, but I don't know it was singing. It was more piano playing or different instruments. But I was very happy to find there were musicians further back in the family that I wasn't aware of. I've always loved performing, always loved singing. This is rather embarrassing to admit, but growing up, I'd be sitting in front of the TV, and I'd be mouthing and doing exactly what I saw the characters on TV doing.
I still do it.
And I'd turn around, my whole family would be behind me just laughing at me, watching me and not the TV. And I find I still do it. I'm really good at covering it, but every once in a great while, someone catches me. And it's so embarrassing. But it's just been in my DNA. But singing has always been a part of that. I started taking voice lessons like when I was a sophomore in high school. My mother was afraid of allowing me to start too young, because sometimes people can, if you don't get the right people when they're that young, they can
get
ruin.
derouted.
Yes.
Yes.
So as soon as I started taking voice lessons, my range just like doubled, which was
Yes.
amazing. And when I was signing up for college classes and you had to pick a major, I was like, oh, I like to sing. Let me check music major. And I sat in my first class that first week, and I was just like, what did I do? I mean, it was so over my head, but I did end up graduating with a music minor, which was cool in vocal performance.
That's great.
And I moved to Nashville, not to sing, but I moved down here, and after I got down here, everybody at every church is a singer. There just wasn't, the church I was going to at the time, I was at that church for 10 years, and in order to do any type of special music, you had to be a member of the choir. If you joined the choir, you had to be available to be at rehearsals for, every single week for 4 weeks a month. And at the time, I had a job where I traveled all the time. I was gone 2-3 weekends a month, so it just wasn't a commitment I was able to make. And so I went 10, 12 years with music not in my life. And about 5-ish years ago now, I just started feeling that stirring up. It was like, I felt like there was a piece of me that was just gonna die if I didn't have an outlet for that. Me not trying to be a singer, just I needed to sing. Like I can't, it's when it's in you, and you need to have a way for it to come out. And for 2 years, God was stirring up my heart that way. And I would just say, Lord, you've got to give me an outlet for this. I'm going to burst. Something in me is going to die if we don't get it. And during that 2 years, God picked me up from where I was at and placed me at my current church, Bethel, which is where I also know you from as well.
Oh,
Bethel! And I was there for probably 2-3 weeks. I had not been going very long, and I was still in I don't know anyone, so I'm just going to go quietly into service and leave and be kind and say hi, but not initiate because I'm an introvert. And I was walking out of the overflow sanctuary, and I passed this tall man who was going the opposite direction as me. We locked eyes and said hi, waved at each other. The moment we walked past each other, he turned around and he goes, "You sing." Like he pointed his finger in my face, and I was so taken aback, I just stumbled all over myself, and I was like, I haven't, and I really want, yes. And it turns out it was Pastor Will, who is the head worship pastor at our church.
Wow.
And he said the moment we locked eyes, the Holy Spirit said, "She sings. I need to get her involved in the choir." And before I knew it, I was in the choir, then I was on praise team, and then that was intimidating enough for me, even though I loved every second of it, and I saw that very clearly that God had been stirring up my heart for 2 years to bring me to Bethel, to allow me to sing with the worship teams at Bethel. But then Pastor Will came to me and asked me to sing a solo, and it was our first day in our new sanctuary, so no pressure. No pressure. And I hadn't sung alone in front of people for 12 years.
Wow.
And I literally, in our rehearsal, my knees were physically knocking. I had 2 women in the choir praying over my knees specifically when I was up there singing. Because when you haven't done something like that in a long time, those nerves get in the way. But God just showed up, and it just was like a beautiful moment between me and God. And just like, Lord, we're doing this. Like, we're finally back. We're doing it. And just everything came together. And
Oh, man, I was blessed. Yeah. I was blessed. That's when I thought that was your primary thing, singing. And I'm like, how come she's never sung before? What's going on here? She should be singing more.
Thank you.
That was blessed. And then, when we talk to a lot of, we do some leadership meeting before service, so we could figure out who's sitting where and how we're going to service the church. A lot of leaders were saying the same thing, how blessed they were by that piece. And they said you should be singing more, and I agree. Wow.
You.
So what would you say to somebody who's shy about singing, or they think they can sing, they're just not going, they're not taking chances. You know, my daughter might be one of them because
Yeah.
she sings well, but not taking chances singing in front of anybody. What would you say to
scary.
somebody like that?
It is scary. I promise you, it is terrifying. But that's okay. I have so many friends that have let fear hold them back from doing these things, and it's the easiest thing to do. Like, it is scary, so it's easy to walk away and be like, you know, I'm not gonna. It's not. I don't need to do it. What if people laugh at me? What if I don't sound as good as I think I sound? Or I mean, there's anything could happen. But when you walk through and take those chances and take those risks, there is nothing more rewarding than that. There really isn't, and you come out on the other end not only feeling proud of yourself for doing it, but I just lost my words. But there is a sense of accomplishment that comes in doing that, and especially if it's something like singing in church for the Lord, when that was a specific song that God was working on my heart with those words, and I've been crying through them the whole week prepping before Pastor Will asked me to sing that song. You know, especially when it's something that you know God has specifically called you to do. Just do it. Walk it out. It is okay if you're afraid. He will show up. I promise you. If he's calling you to do it, he will show up with you in that moment.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I couldn't say it better.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit about one of your number one loves, if not the number one, which I come to find out afterwards. Acting.
Yes.
Acting. At what point during your singing in school and getting a minor and degree, at what point did you discover acting was your baby?
Man, you know what? All this goes back to God every time. I would always knew that I probably loved acting more, but growing up in a small town, no one told me I could pursue that. I didn't know I could. And I moved down here to Nashville. I was in my first year here, and I was working at a Christian bookstore at the time, actually. And we were allowed to take some of the books home with us if we wanted to read them, and kept them in really good condition and then could bring them back, kind of like a lending library because we were staff there. And there was one that someone had written, like a fictional story on the story of Queen Esther. And it was really good. I loved the story, but I found out through the grapevine they were actually making a movie of that book. And I was intrigued and interested, but again, no one had ever told me I could pursue something like this, so it wasn't a thought in my mind. And I was sitting in my bed one night shortly after finishing that book, having my time with the Lord, and I heard him speak to me and say, I want you to apply to be a part of that movie.
Whoa.
And I laughed. Like, not out of disrespect, but I literally went, okay. Like,
You had a S.T.A.R. moment.
I was like, Lord, you know that I would love to. You know I would, but I don't even know where to start, but okay. Like, I mean, your only answer to God when he speaks is okay. Like, it has to be.
Yes.
And so I fell asleep kind of laughing to myself, like, well, I guess we'll figure out what to do. You know, and I went and looked up some production company that I think was doing it, found their address. I went out and got some headshots taken, which now that I know what I know, looking back, they were not good headshots at all. Put together a resume that had nothing on it and sent that headshot and that resume and mailed it in, which is not how you get castings. But again,
That's brave.
it was just, I knew God told me to do it, so I had to walk it out, no matter how ridiculous I felt or weird I felt about it. And I never got a call back to go audition for that film.
Yeah.
I didn't, but that is what God used to start me on this path. And before I knew it, I was looking into and talking with talent agencies here, and they were suggesting take workshops. And so I'd take workshops, then I was getting better headshots taken. And it's just this journey, bit after bit after bit, that's brought me to where I am today, where I'm casting, I'm producing, I'm acting. Like, it's been amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's funny how one step of obedience
Yeah.
will take you to the next step.
Yeah.
You know, often it's said that delayed obedience is disobedience, and half obedience is disobedience. The fact that you had the courage to just listen to that voice on the inside and move forward with what the Holy Spirit was telling you.
Yeah.
And then after that, he equipped you
He did.
with everything you
He
needed
did.
to be where you are now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about your first film, if you remember
I
what
remember
that
which one was my
was.
first
When
I think I remember which one it was. Oh, there was a couple. I don't remember which one was first, but the one I remember better I'm actually still friends with these guys to this day. They had written a silly little script, and it was pretty funny. And I went and auditioned for them. They cast me in it. I was playing this guy's older sister who was very with child. Like, when we filmed it, it was like to the point of ridiculousness, like belly like out to here, who was just an obnoxious older sister who was just berating her younger brother the whole time. And I have a lot of younger brothers, so it wasn't that much of a stretch. It was kind of easy to do. So yeah, that's what it was. I don't even know if they ever finished editing it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes those very, very independent films are, but we had a great time doing it. I made some dear friends that, you know, we
You've
still
never
hang out
seen
every once in a
the
while.
final print?
No, I
No,
never did.
it happens.
I've seen snippets here and there, and
You know,
it's silly, but
It's funny because
Yeah.
in the acting business, it's probably the hardest thing to getting your work back from a production company.
yes.
Sometimes I
Yes,
tell them,
it
you
is.
know, I know you want to pay me for this, but can I get a copy of this, please?
Please.
It's hard to get.
It is, you know.
So tell me a little bit about your past projects. So once you
Okay.
did one of those 2 films at your first one, how did you escalate to the next one and the next one? Did you end up hooking up with an agency? How did you
Yeah.
start booking roles?
Yeah, you know what? Goodness, that is a good question. It all kind of is meshed together in my brain because this has been a journey for the past 10 or so years of my life, probably 12 years of my life. But I started working with a talent agency, and I've switched a couple times before I landed on the one I'm with now, and I've been with them for about 5 or 6 years now. But you know, the talent agencies get you out to be seen for auditions. They get you to castings, and it was through that. Or at the time, I was also looking on Craigslist for different audition postings, which, if you're getting started, is a little, be careful. Be careful with Craigslist. You know, anyone can be on the other end of that, but I did get some projects through doing that. And, you know, through friends too. Like, especially Nashville is such a networking city, and the longer you're in the business, like the production world in Nashville is a very small production world, like in the grand scheme of things. And you build relationships, and friends ask you to be a part of their projects, and you just get more and more on camera experience, and just do it.
Nice.
You know? Yeah.
Nice. Which brings us to the not current, but the last project you finished working on that I'm so excited about and so jealous about. Let's talk a little bit about Day 7.
Yes.
Yeah,
Day
the
7.
last film that you worked on. I gotta say, when I'm looking at the trailer, I'm looking at little, well, not trailers, but little sneak preview that you
Yeah.
would post here and there.
Yeah.
I'm like, why didn't I audition for this? Epic! I want to be in an epic movie. How did you book that? And tell us
Yeah.
what the experience for that movie has been like.
Absolutely. Day 7 has been a passion project for me and for all of my friends that are involved in this. I've actually been doing short films with them for about 8 years now.
Sweet.
And I got to know them when they were in film school. The writer-director, his name's Hunter Perschbacher. He was in a director's class, and this was one I found through Craigslist. So there are some good ones you can find on Craigslist. It was the Art Institute of Tennessee was having just an open casting for actors to come in front of this whole class of directors who were looking for actors for their films because they had to complete a short film to finish this course out. And so
That's a good way to get exposure.
it really is. So I went to that class and I got cast in, I think, 4 of these student films, and I had to turn one down because they were all shooting at the same time. And
Wow.
can only be one place at one time. But again, student films are great experience, really great experience if you're trying to get used to being on camera and working with crews. And so I got cast by Hunter for his film playing a woman who had multiple personalities. And for someone who's still fairly new to the acting thing, that was a bit of a challenge, but it was fun. I'm playing 2 different characters in the same short film.
Yeah.
And he has got around himself, placed around himself just an amazing group of talented filmmakers. You know, he's a writer-director. He has one of his best friends is a fantastic editor. One of his other best friends is an amazing DP. And all of them love creating together. And so, you know, we've gotten together off and on over the years and created several short films. They even helped me with some short films we did for a project at Bethel with the Bethel singles community. They shot 4 short films for me for a conference that we had, and they were beautiful. I mean, just amazing productions. And Hunter has been working on this world that is Day 7 for years. Like we've been talking about, he's written 3 features actually, full-length feature films that take place in this universe. But it's been hard getting investors to see the concept of what this film is. When you're describing something that's so fantastical, unless you see it, it's hard. You'll read the script and he's made up different objects and different things for these cultures, and you'll read it and be like, I don't know what that is. But if you see it, it makes sense.
Yes.
And so he wrote Day 7, which takes place in a corner of this universe that he's created to show to investors and be like, look, this is what I'm talking about. These are the characters. These are the storylines. This is what it is. This is the world that we've created. And so, yeah, we've been talking about Day 7 itself as a short film, which for a year and a half now. We ran a crowdfunding campaign and failed the first time. We got within $2,000 of our goal and didn't make it. And that's just like, ugh.
Wow.
But, you know, you revamp, you reevaluate, like what worked, what didn't work.
Sure.
And we ran a second campaign and exceeded our goal by several $1,000s.
Nice.
And we were in production November, December, out in the woods for 4 weekends shooting this film. It was amazing. Like action, fantasy, steampunk, sci-fi, all of that jumbled in together.
Yeah.
And there are moments that are very quiet as it's just like conversation happening and you're just kind of getting a feel for what all's going with the characters. And then there's some amazing action scenes too. Like
We'll forget some clips. We'll show them to you.
Okay.
So multiple locations.
Yes.
From what I understand.
Yes.
I've seen you at so many different places.
We were all over. Yeah.
And then what role did you play? Tell us a little bit about that character.
I would love to. I played Narina. She is somebody who has had a hard life. Her mother was a gunslinger, a bounty hunter, and she, as a young child, would go with her mother, you know, on all of these adventures to get these bad guys and bring them in. And she lost her mother at a young age. And so she grew up just in this world where she had to fend for herself. She had to be the fighter, and she kind of took on her mother's role at a very young age as well. And she's someone who has been in this world for so long that she's made all these different connections. And she's actually the one that pulls this whole group of good guys together to stand up against these corporate men that are coming in, trying to mine this resource. And they hire some I don't even know what the word for it is. They're not thugs, but they are brutal warriors, actually. And there are some epic battle scenes with me and my group of guys that I pulled together standing up and fighting against these warriors. It's pretty fun.
Did you get to do your own stunts?
Yes, I did. They brought in a stunt coordinator from New York City, and she brought down a couple stunt guys. And I didn't think that I was going to get to do very many stunts because my character has 2 guns and she just shoots people, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, I just said shooting people is cool, but in film,
it is.
Fantasy, and make believe, it's cool.
For an actor, it is.
As an actor, yeah, exactly. Let me clarify that. But there's not a whole lot of like contact. But there was one moment where I had to get in a headlock by one of the bad guys, and I had to get out of it and take care of business. And the man that had me in the headlock was actually one of the stunt guys that she brought down with her from New York City. And, you know, we're in this whole like drag out fight and these scenes and struggling. And the moment it's over, he'd reach over and just like pat me on the back, like, good job. It was so sweet and fun, but I was like, oh, I did it. Thanks. It was a blast, like so much fun to shoot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for a film like that, which audience do you think would be most interested in it? Or is this something for everybody?
Probably not for everybody. There's a lot of death in this film, and in this particular story. But anyone who enjoys anything like Star Wars or
Sci-fi,
you know,
fantasy world type of.
Yes, Lord of the Rings.
Epic.
It will.
I love epic movies.
Star Trek. It'll pull in that anyone from those audiences because there are elements of that all throughout these stories. Yeah.
Man, I'm looking forward to seeing that. So this is going to be shot as a short film.
Yes.
And it's going to be presented to film festivals.
I believe so, yes.
And then is there a DVD release after that? How does that work?
You know what? I'm not sure. I think it's still in flux. The main point of shooting this short was to the main point of shooting this short film is to show investors This is what we can do. This is the fantasy world. Do you want to invest in, helping us create these features and getting these features into production?
Yes.
So I am not entirely sure if there will be a DVD release of it. My guess would be that it would be something that would be released on the feature films once we get those into production.
Sure.
But I know they're still hammering out ideas. Like, it's not been completely solidified yet, since this is such a different way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the production company in Nashville?
It is. They're called Omega Pictures.
Omega
Yes.
Pictures.
Omega Pictures.
Will there be a premiere for people maybe to go as a group to watch it somewhere?
I hope so. They have not scheduled anything yet, but if there is, I will let you guys know, because we would love to have any of you guys out to see it.
Awesome.
Yes.
I got to see that.
Thank you.
All right. So, wow. Fascinating. Man, I'm not doing much in my acting world. You're just out there. Fascinating. Let's talk a little bit about you as a voiceover artist.
Okay.
Now, that's a world that I love so much. And when I discovered you've done over 12 audiobooks, I was so jealous. And I asked the Lord to forgive me for my jealousy. But tell us a little bit about that. That's very exciting for
Yes.
voiceover artists like me who love to just do voice stuff.
Yeah.
That's just exciting to hear.
Yeah.
How do you book those deals? Where do you get those deals?
Sure.
And man, the last one you worked on, it seems like you were just working on it.
Yeah.
And then I tuned into Instagram today, and you said something like, it's finished.
It's finished.
I'm like, whoa. So let's start with, do you remember your first audiobook?
Yes. Which one was it? I remember the experience.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. Yes. Voice work is something I dabbled in a little bit. I had a friend of mine who had her film. She was doing some post work on it at the studio that I work at full time. And they had this one part where they needed someone to voice the city's voice in the film, and they had a couple voiceover actors record it, and apparently it just wasn't working. And she was talking with the editor, and one of them suggested, why don't we just go down to the audio booth and have Charity record it? And I did it, and she loved what it was. And she came up to me afterwards. She's like, Charity, you should really look into doing voice work. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. Like, it just wasn't a thought in my mind. It just wasn't. Like, I enjoyed doing it because it was for a film, and I got to get my drama on as an actress, But she did. She told me several times, you really should do voice work. And a year or so later, I booked through my agent, I booked a voiceover job for Thomas Nelson HarperCollins Publishing.
Oh, sweet.
Yes, and it was for an online video. There was a new King James Version study Bible that was coming out, and it was just, I was the voice on their online video that was talking about this new Bible. This new Bible, that sounds weird, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
New study Bible. And I went into the studio, recorded that for them. That's left, got paid for the work. It was great. 4 or 5 months after that, I get an email on my work account. There was a gentleman that I knew over at HarperCollins that had shot at the studio I work at, so I knew him through my full-time job. And his email said, Charity, I just watched a video that one of my staff produced, and I didn't know you did voice work. I would love to take you out to lunch and talk to you about possibly narrating audiobooks. And I went, why not? That's just, okay, we'll walk this out. Okay. So he did. He took me out to lunch and just kind of explained the process that they go through. He had me go into a studio, the Paragon Studios down in Cool Springs, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous studio if you've ever been there. And he had me just record 4 or 5 pages of a book that I loved, and then he uses that to shop me to his authors. Mm-hmm. And within that first year, I had recorded 3 books for HarperCollins, and even the production studio, Paragon, were saying, Charity, we never see people coming in this frequently to do audiobooks. So wow. It was very much a blessing. God literally just dropped all this in my lap, and I was like, all right, let's walk this out. Why not? Yeah. But that started me down the path of voice work. And I joined TiVo, which, Max, that's something you should look into joining. It is just a group of voiceover artists that meet once a month. They network. There is some sort of informative something that you learn every single month that has to do with the voiceover business. There are a lot of full-time voiceover artists that come to this, that are members of this. There are some that are just starting out. But it's an excellent group of people. But they, I just started learning. I started taking voiceover workshops because I was like, well, if I'm going to do audiobooks, maybe I should start learning so I know what I'm doing. I just
Sure.
kind of jumped in and was reading, you know, which is what you do, but there are steps you can take to prepare better ahead of time
course.
before you go into the studio. And I just started learning about the voice world, and more opportunities just started presenting themselves. I joined a website called acx.com, which is associated with Audible, and it's a site where authors can shop narrators, and narrators can audition for authors' books. But if you sign up on there, you have to have a home studio, and you have to be able to present to them a finished audiobook. I like working at Paragon because I can just sit and read, and then they do all the post
Right,
on it.
right.
It's
Which
a
was
lot
going to
of
bring me
work.
to my next question. Having booked so many audiobooks, did you end up building your own home studio to, to just do work without having to travel back and forth?
Yes, I did. I don't have a very elaborate studio, a home studio, but I have equipment that works well. And I have equipment that were suggested to me through one of the workshops that I attended. They said you could get this microphone, it works well. You can do this program, it works well for people just starting out. And so I just used some of my audiobook money to purchase my microphone, to purchase the software, and got myself my little home studio set up. And I can record good audio from that.
Nice.
It's not top of the line equipment, but it does the job.
Hey, if the clients are satisfied, then
I haven't
that's
had
it.
any complaints. So.
Great, that's all you need.
Yes.
The one that you just finished,
Yes.
what's the name of that one? And I know you were trying to give some freebies away. How do people trying to purchase your work?
It's a book called The Inheritance. It's a fiction story by an author called Irina Shapiro. And I went through and read one of her other books just to kind of get a better feel for what she does. And it's very geared towards a female audience. It's not a Christian book, so there are some things in there that aren't HarperCollins or Thomas Nelson. But she still writes a good story. But she likes to write about traveling in time. So either in my book, there's a main character that you're following. She inherits this castle in Scotland from this random man that claims to be her grandfather, and she's like, what? And so she has to travel there to go deal with all the legal documents that have to do with that, and at the same time she's figuring out why this man claims to be her grandfather. And then it also goes back in time to the 1700s, and you start seeing the drama that's happening with the people that actually lived in that castle, and then how those two are connected. So it's an interesting story.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Sweet.
yeah.
So when you do voiceover for books like that, do you just narrate the story, or do you play multiple voices?
You have to, when you're doing a fiction story, you have to distinguish your voice enough to where it's easy for a listener to know who's talking. You don't have to go all out and do major character voices, but you can just drop your voice a little lower if you're being a man, or if there's multiple girls, maybe you just want to raise your voice a little higher, just so if one girl's having a conversation with another girl, it's easy to know who's talking. And then this one had a lot of Scottish accents, which
Really?
accents are not my strong suit. But the author, the first question she asked me when she reached out to me on ACX, because she contacted me, was, how are you with accents? I said, I'll be honest, not great. I'm not going to say I can do what I can't do, but we found a happy medium where you can tell there's Scottish accents to this accent, but it's not a full-on Scottish accent.
Yeah.
And I got into her book. We had agreed that I would do it, and I get into her book, and I realized how many of the characters are actually Scottish. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Wow.
So it was a challenge, but it was a good one. It was
Wow.
it was one more thing that caused me to push past one of my fears, because I've been shying away from accent work because I haven't been trained in it yet, and until I can do it well, I don't want to say that I can do that. But it forced me to find a good happy medium, because I've been learning too with audiobooks, you don't necessarily want to do a full-on strong accent anyways, because if you're doing a little more charactery, it might be offensive to people that are from that country and that culture. So it's better to do just a slight accent to where it's obvious that this is where it's coming from, but it's not all the way.
Wow.
Again, always learning stuff.
Good.
Always learning.
Wow. So before we close with the audiobook, since I love it so much, when a project is done, what does that look like? Do you just reach out to the client, says this is done, and then they take a listen at it to make sure that they enjoy it, or is it throughout the process you send them a chapter of this, a chapter of that, they listen through it and say keep going?
Everyone's different. When I record through Paragon, I just sit down and record the whole book with them, and then they send it off to someone who proofs it, and we'll go back in and do pickups if I missaid a word, which happens a lot, or if there's a weird noise in the background. And then when that's done, it's sent off and approved by, I think, the author or the author's people. But because I'm removed from that process, I'm not entirely sure what their exact process is. But when you're on ACX, where I'm recording it myself, I'm editing it myself, I'm mastering the files myself, and then giving them to the author, generally you do the whole book and upload it, and then they go through it and come back to you and say thumbs up, or can you fix this here and there? Yes.
Yeah.
But this particular author I was working with, she was listening to it as we went and giving me corrections as we went. So everyone's a little bit different, and I'm learning, it's good to ask these questions up front and work with the author up front to see what their expectations are, because I didn't realize she was wanting to listen to it all the way as we were going.
Wow.
So, yeah.
When writers are writing books, sometimes they're on a time specific deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same thing for you as when you're doing audiobooks, you're giving X amount of time?
Yes.
And in which case, I did notice that you were sick a couple of times with your voice. How do you manage that?
Oh,
You're just trying to
by the
recuperate
grace
as
of
fast
God.
as possible?
Yes, I had bronchitis in December. I got a really bad cold, and they were shooting out in the cold for day 7, and apparently it turned into bronchitis. So I had that all of December into January. I still have like little remnants of it, but I had to record an audiobook in the middle of that. So there were a lot of edits in my audiobook. There was a lot of, like you do what you can. Like, my voice is a little more raspy in this audiobook than it normally is.
Yeah, I would suppose that.
But it was something like there was a deadline. It had to get done. As long as I wasn't sounding congested or sick, we're going to record it and present it, and thankfully she couldn't tell I was sick, because there was no comments to me back from the author saying, do you have a cold? So you just plow through, and you got to get it done.
Gotta do.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
What's the fastest you've recorded an audiobook?
Well, see, they're all different lengths. Every book, and I haven't
so
done any that are.
It depends on the length of the book.
It depends on the length of the book, and if I'm doing the post or not. If it's through Paragon, I'll schedule 2 or 3 recording sessions and just go in and read for 3 hours here, 3 hours there. Mostly been in the studio for less than 10 hours for these books that end up being 5.5 to 7 hours long when you're listening to them. When I'm recording at home, you lose track of all time and space, because you go into your little
You're
hole.
in the zone.
You're in your zone, and you have to pay attention to so many other things, like, oh, did my foot kick the microphone when I was doing that? Because there's not, if you have an engineer that's recording for you, they're also listening in, and they're also saying, hey, can you go back and pick up that last, sentence and redo it? But when you're doing it by yourself, you have to be conscious of that.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
You do producing as well.
Yep.
I would love to hear about that. And you did some casting?
Yeah.
Oh, tell us about these two, because that's exciting to hear.
Let me start with casting. I'll end with producing, because producing is what my current project. But yeah, I've had some friends reach out to me off and on over the past couple years and ask me if I could get talent in for this or that, and small stuff. And I've been able to. I have enough actor friends by now to where I'm like, hey, do you want to, would you want to do this or be a part of this? Day 7, Hunter came up to me, and we already knew I was going to play narrator, because we've been talking about this character for 4 or 5 years actually. But he said, would you be interested in being the casting director on it? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? It was a challenge to be casting director and be one of the actors in it. There was a point where I had to hand off some of the responsibility once I got most of the cast in to somebody else to communicate with people, because I just had no time to work on my lines. And I was like, can't sacrifice Narina for being the casting director. So that was a lot. And Hunter came up to me after we were done. He said, Charity, you never have to be casting director on a film when you're acting with me again. I said, thank you, but when Narina's not in these films, can I still be your casting director? He said, yes. I said, okay, good. Because I really enjoyed it, especially with fantastical characters like we're in day 7. To find just the right actors to play those was a good challenge. And I have some amazing actor friends. Most of the people I pulled in were people I knew through acting workshops or through different friendships or this or that or the other thing. And then there was a couple holes we filled in that we had general castings that we put out to a couple agencies. Wow. That was fun. And one of my friends from that film has one of his own short films that he's doing, and he approached me and said, hey, would you help me cast for this? And he has some very characters in his as well. So we went through a lot of people, but we found the right people, and I'm really excited about his cast. So his film is going to be pretty cool too. Yeah, and so currently I am producing. I have produced on a smaller level at the studio I work at for like 1 to 3 or 4 day shoots that we have, in-house. But I've never produced on something that is 16-ish days of shooting, which is what I'm doing. It is an independent, faith-based film that I'm currently working on. So it's a good challenge. I've been really wanting to dip my toes into the producing world a little bit more, and then again, out of the blue, this is just God literally just dumps these things in my lap and says, I want you to do this. And I'm like, okay, we're going to walk this out and figure it out as we go. But this director who I randomly met at the film festival, the Nashville Film Festival a couple years ago, reached out to me and said, Charity, this is so out of the blue. I know it is, but I would like to sit down with you and talk to you about maybe producing on this film. I'm really sensing that it's time to walk forward this. And I was like, okay. I had just been praying, saying, Lord, I would love some opportunities to start producing.
Wow.
I mean, again, this is just God every step of the way. Has just been guiding me on this path. And so we're in the midst of it. We have a crowdfunding campaign that's going right now. We have another, week or so on that we're trying to raise the money. And if we hit our goal, we're going to be in production this April. So it's pretty exciting.
Wow. Wow. That's very exciting. Very exciting. So, you've had quite a colorful journey.
Yes.
And it's obvious God's hands is upon your career and the different things you're doing. And you've had a level of success that you're very happy with right now. Yeah. And there is somebody watching you, the next Chastity, maybe Grace is watching you or Hope is watching you.
Yes.
And, they love what you're doing. That's what they would love to do.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that there are ups and downs in this business, and you will get no's as much as you get yeses.
More.
What would you like to say to that girl or even that guy watching you struggling as an artist, struggling as a vocal artist, as a voiceover artist, struggling to even go behind the camera as director or producer? What would you like to tell them?
Yes. So I have different pieces of advice for people with these different things, these different areas, but don't give up is the one that just overcompasses all of that. It's if this is something you love to do and this is something you are passionate about, don't give up. You are going to get more no's than you get yeses, and you have to get thick skin. If all those no's bother you, this might not be the business for you. As an actress, I've gone through 2 years of booking hardly anything. And that can get discouraging. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but those are the type of things you have to let just roll off your back and just keep doing. All you can control is what you give in the audition. Yeah. That is the only thing you have control over. They may be looking at it, and your audition may be even better than maybe another actress's was or actor's was, but they have the color of hair that they need, or they have this. Like, it could be the smallest thing, and it's not necessarily a reflection on what you're presenting. But also constantly be working on your craft and honing your skill. Attend workshops. Like, even the best actors out in LA are constantly workshopping. Yeah. Like, it's just what you do. And there is an amazing joy that comes in workshopping with other actors. I love when I can consistently be in classes and hammer out these scenes and be presenting them in front of instructors and in front of the other actors, because you learn so much doing that and watching others do that as well. So don't give up. Don't be discouraged by the no's. If you love it, keep doing it. There will be yeses. And in those workshops, you'll make relationships, and your friends will be like, hey, you want to be in this film? And then you're getting yourself experience. Yes. So just keep at it. Yes. For voice work, if you have something where you're at, if you're not in Nashville, that is a voiceover group, join it, Get yourself a home studio, go to workshops, find people that have been in this business forever that are having workshops, and just go learn from them. That's what I've been doing, and because of these workshops, I now have my home studio set up, and I have even more connections and more relationships built. Network with people. Networking is not my favorite thing to do, but when I get to know people, I would rather just build relationships in this business. And thankfully, at least in our town, Nashville, that seems to be a little bit easier to do. And then you just are working with your friends when you're going on set or going to a recording session. If you're interested in audiobooks, check out acx.com. Get your home studio set up. Make sure you know what you're doing with the technology side. And I'll be honest, that's something that scares me, so I'm still learning about that part as well. I'd rather just sit and read. But learn these things, get yourself set up. Join acx.com. There's a lot of other good, casting voice websites that you can join. Just get your business going. If you're interested in producing, work with friends that are doing short films, or student films. See if you can get on set and just get some set experience. Or see if you have a friend that is producing, if you can work as their assistant producer. Just get on set with them, learn from them, learn what they do, and before you know it, you'll be having opportunities for you to step out and take that front runner position. Yeah.
Wow, that's great advice. That is great advice. Now, we would love to follow you, keep in touch with you, watch you, and there might even be somebody who wants you to be their mentor. So how do we contact you? I know you got a wonderful website. Give us some idea. How do we contact you, stay in touch with you, follow you? And for that girl you just spoke with, Hope was out there.
Yes.
She might just want to be able to send you a message here and there.
Yeah.
How do we get in touch with you?
Well, I've got a website for acting and a website for voice. My acting website is charityspencer.com. My voice acting website is charityspencervoice.com. So not super complicated, thankfully. I also have a Facebook page for both Charity Spencer Voice and Charity Spencer the actor. You can find me on Facebook. Just reach out to me. I'd love to help you. You can email me through my website, or you can message me on Facebook. And yeah, I love helping people in this business that are getting started.
Are you also on Instagram and Twitter?
I am. I'm rarely on Twitter, so
Okay.
you might not want to follow me on there very much. But Instagram, I'm very present on. It's charity_Spencer. Yeah.
Wow. So 2 websites.
Yes.
Now, that's interesting because most actors would just put one more icon on their actor's page for voice.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to do 2 separate websites?
What I learned in workshops. I was taking a workshop from a gentleman here named Joe Lesh. And if you are in Nashville, take his workshop. He's been in this business for 30 plus years and has done everything and worked with everybody you can possibly imagine. This guy knows his stuff. And he's one of the kindest, most genuine men you will ever meet in your life. But Joe, in one of his classes, I was telling him I had my acting website up, and in the thought of creating and managing another website, I was just kind of like, ugh, I don't really want to do that. But he said, Charity, no, I would keep them separate. He said, have a separate Facebook fan page for your voice work, have a separate website for your voice work, so that people that are coming to you for a voice artist will know that you are a voice artist. And there is a link from on my voice artist page to my actor's page. You can find me in both easily.
Good.
But that way, to those people, I'm presenting myself as a voice actor. To the other people that are casting, I'm presenting myself as an actor. So it helps differentiate between the two.
Makes sense. And you created your own websites and maintained them?
Yeah.
Wow, that's another set of skills. That's another 2 hours of talk right there. Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, Charity, you got to come back
I would love to.
another time.
I'd be honored.
I know the time is a little out there, but great information and great inspiration. Anything last you want to say before we close? Because I know this has been uplifting for me. Any last word that's on your mind? Go ahead and tell us, and we'll close with that.
Find what you love. Find what you love to do. If there's something you're passionate about, even if you're not at the point where this can be an actual profession, do it on the side. Do your job where you make your money and pay your bills. Do this on the side. No matter what it is. It could be, I know people who are painters. There may come a point where you'll find a way to start bringing some income in, start an Etsy shop if it's something that you create and want to sell, just whatever that is, whatever you're passionate about, pursue it. Don't let it die. Like, I see so many people that just keep their dreams by the wayside because of fear or not knowing where to go. Just don't let yourself get overwhelmed by that. Take just one step at a time, okay, my first step is, make this painting. Then just make the painting and then find out what the next step is after that,
Wow. Couldn't say it better. I couldn't have said it better. Probably one of the reasons why somebody asked me on Instagram not too long ago, what is it you don't do? What is it you don't do? Something like that.
Yeah.
Because I got so much going on. I said, well, I'm not stopping till I've done all of my dreams.
Yes, I love that.
You just got to keep going.
Yes.
And
yes.
and you are doing just that.
Yes.
Oh, Charity, thank you for joining us today
My
at
pleasure.
S.T.A.R Productions. And if you're listening, we're posting all of Charity's information on the screen for you. Make sure you follow her. Make sure you reach out to her. And she has a great heart. If you just want some advice, you want to shoot her a message, she will respond to you. She might be in Paris shooting or something like that, and it takes a little time to get back to me, but it's all right. That's that. She's busy, but she'll get back to you, and I think you'll get great information from her. I'm Max with S.T.A.R Productions, spiritually trained and renewed productions, where it's not enough to be talented, you have to be spiritually trained and renewed. Until next time, God bless you. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.